Entity relationship diagram. So dirty. Hi, James.
Hi, how are you doing? Sorry about yesterday. It was a mess.
No
It was
worries.
a mess for myself. Yeah. The schedule in Open Classroom just got mixed up, and like I went back and checked my schedule. I was like, oh wow, I miss it. So
No worries. I was nervous.
Yeah. No worries. So yeah, I believe this is the first and the only assessment for your course. And so I'm just like to take 1 to 2 minutes to just let you know would be today's agenda. So of course, the first part would be your presentation, which normally takes 10 to 15 minutes. And after that, I would have a couple of questions for you regarding your presentation material, as well as the SQL statement that you have put on your presentation. And these two sections will be recorded for quality assurance, as well as dispute settlement. Let's put it this way. In case you have any disputes regarding the assessment result, then we can use that as an evidence for another assessor to reassess your work. So that's why we made a recording for that. And after these two sections, so there will be a short feedback section regarding your work, as well as just some highlights on your presentation as well as your work. It will be a couple of minutes. So the whole process should take around 25 to 30 minutes for today. So before we start, you could check your slides, your slide deck, and have your whatever SQL server that you use. I guess you are using SQLite. And you have that ready, and then you can check and test your screen sharing function in the meeting room to make sure everything is working before we start. So don't worry, take your time, relax, and make sure everything is ready before you start.
Okay, so just copy paste real quick.
Yeah.
Okay. I kind of already did check before before 7 today. Because I was making, I was trying to improve my statements, just make sure that they were all in functioning order.
No way. You can try testing your screen share function on your side.
Okay.
See if it's working.
And then window. Let's try window. This one. And then I gotta reduce size here and go to here.
Okay, cool. Looks great. Yeah. Well, if you're ready, you can start.
And then I just want you to know ahead of time, I am reading off of my script that's behind the screen. And so
Well, let's put it this way.
Uh-huh.
There is, there is, in the assessment criteria, we do not assess the student's ability of course we take presentation skills into account, but in your case, there are no ways for me to know from the recording that you have a source, if you know what I mean. So so whether you have prepared a script, or you have other presentation notes to help you with the presentation, that's completely fine.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. Don't worry about that. You will assess based on the SQL statements that you have produced, as well as the accuracy of the output.
Will you be asking questions in between slides or at the end only?
I will ask question at the end, so relax. So you will go through your presentation first, and then I will ask questions after that. So gotcha. I would basically, I won't interrupt you during the presentation.
Okay. All right.
Unless there are some technical issues or connection issues that I cannot hear your presentation, or you got disconnected, or other technical issues, then I would interrupt your presentation. Otherwise, I would just let you present the material.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I guess there's no more procrastinating. I just gotta go ahead and start. So I guess recording is good for now.
Okay, cool. I'm going to start recording, and then you can start in 10 seconds.
Sure. Okay, so with the first slide task, creating tables in the database, I use SQLite as my database management system for this project. And the entity relationship diagram from the project brief and the graphical user interface of SQLite helped me create the tables for each Facebook data file. I didn't type it up myself. And the column country code identifies the country in an abbreviated format for 4 tables, which display the number of fans based on country, city, language, or gender and age. PopStats is the table that acts as a database's legend for each country and their corresponding country code. The country code column in the PopStats table has unique non-repeated values, and for these reasons, PopStats country code serves as the primary key for the database, while the other tables with the country code column are identified as foreign keys referencing the PopStats table. And then I did make a change because the diagrams post insights table included the engaged users column. So this column is not included in the schema for the post insights table, as the corresponding data file did not include this field. Okay, and so then let's go here. So then the next slide for the global page averages, I use the aggregate function AVG to calculate the daily average reach of posts recorded under the daily post reach column in the global page table. And the same function was used to calculate the daily average engagement under the new likes column from the global page table. Okay, so then in the next slide, in this SQL statement, I used a join clause to connect the fans per country table and PopStats table on their common column country code. This way, the country name from the PopStats table and the corresponding fan count from the number of fans column in fans per country could display side by side. The date was set to the max date, so only the most recent values for number of fans was considered by the system. And without the order by statement, the DBMS would return an error message. So the system or SQLite needs to know how to display the values such as order by, country code, or country name, which the system would then order the selected column in alphabetical order if I chose one of those three, since they're not numerical values. And so by me keying order by number of fans, the system ordered and organized a list by fan count. And then let's see, for the greatest fan count to appear first, the command descend is used. And to prevent all countries in the fans per country table from listing, I set the list limit to 10. All right, so then the next slide. So I made a lot of changes and worked on making my SQL statement simpler after I found myself writing very long, complicated statements.
Yeah.
And in this slide, the database was created using the data type integer for number of fans and the population columns. Because I chose to have my multiplication of 100 at first appear after the penetration ratio's denominator, I originally had to use the cast function to convert the integer values of number of fans and population to the data type real for my query to work. But then my mentor showed me that if I moved the multiplication of 100 before dividing the numerator, number of fans by the denominator, population, my query could execute correctly without the use of cast. And so that's the change I made. And then to prevent multiple decimal places, I did use the round function to have the decimal rounded after 2 decimal places. I did review the fans per country data file and realized I didn't need to use the aggregate function sum for number of fans, as each day in the fans per country table lists a country's country code once. So I did delete the unnecessary sum function, and that's why it's no longer included. The group by function had to be set to group by either the penetration ratio, country code, or population attribute to produce more than one tuple. I checked the 3 grouping by the 3 different types of attributes, and the 3 options produce the same results.
Yep.
And then let's go to slide 8. Here I use the greater than symbol for the system to retrieve only countries whose population is over 20 million. I did not have to tell the system to list in ascending order, as that is the default order for SQLite and most other systems to list in. And then of course the join, nothing new other than the greater than symbol. And then in slide 9, this is where I use a nested query to correctly divide the total number of fans in the given country by the total number of fans in the fans per country table. The nested query is the portion of the statement written for the denominator. Originally, I wrote this statement using a with clause to correctly write the denominator and have the with field alias for the total fan count in the denominator's place. I took the elements in the with statement, cut out the with clause, and pasted what is now the nested query over the with field alias. And I did previously use cast in the denominator portion of this query, but like the previous slide, I eliminated the use of cast after moving my multiplication of 100 to before the division of the denominator. And then slide 10. I worked on slide 10 before I worked on slide 9, which is why my table for slide 10 has columns identifying the numerator and denominator for each gender type. I wanted to write the statement for the top and bottom before writing them in together to create the split column.
Yeah.
I did struggle to read my equation correctly without the use of with. So this statement too originally read with a with clause until the layers of parentheses no longer confused me. This statement differs from the previous slide's statement in that the values to be grouped are by gender instead of age group.
Yep.
Okay, and then slide 11, and then 12 because I couldn't fit it all in one slide. At first, I attempted to write one large statement to answer all 3 questions under the analysis by language slide, but the third question is dense, or the statement is dense, so I decided to produce statements for each question for simplicity and visual appeal. I looked through the fans per language data file and decided not to include language equals EN as an additional restriction to answer the third question because all tuples with US as the country in the fans per language table had English as the primary language. So I didn't find it necessary to retrieve the correct value. And then slide 13, string frame time. It was a neat function because it has like a bunch of different wildcard characters that you could use, and it's very similar to the data entry code books I've used at work before. But it was a struggle to find examples online. So this one was a lot more fidgeting with the query to figure out how I could have SQLite read and understand the case statement. Because a lot of my tries, I ended up just having the query run and then say NA 100%, because it's the else statement, and it just didn't. It was a hit and miss with or it missed all of the other ones, all of the when and then statements. And then slide 14. In ranking my, I guess, favorite or most accomplished, understandings of SQL was first, no longer needing to use the with statements to recognize my equations. The next thing I was excited about was learning how to eliminate the use of cast in queries involving ratios and splits. And then most recently, I did figure out how to use the between clause properly, because when I first started working on this slide, I was trying to use the between clause, and I kept on using the string frame time with the when and then, the same way as I did in the previous slide, in slide 13. But I couldn't manage to make it work with string frame time only presented one time. So instead, I had my mentor help me with this slide. I would say with the other slides, I kind of just Googled and worked on it by myself, but this one was very frustrating. And so my mentor originally showed me how to use cast and to use the hour wildcard with greater than, equal to, and less than functions. But I didn't like the look of it because it just seemed like a lot of lines and it looked very very dense. And I really wanted to present my project using the between clause. And so I was able to do what she did, where I just use when, string frame time, and instead of just the hour wildcard, I use the hour minute wildcard, and repeated each line or each when statement with that, and then used between to then find, or I guess to already find the ranges of times and the percentages of each range for this query. And then let's see. So then slide 15, recommendations, and let's see, I'm gonna do something. I want to go to, and okay, so for recommendations, my first recommendation has to do with the main question for the this project, which is whether or not to launch an English version of the magazine. And from one of the slides, we already know that consumers of Datazine from the US make up about $200,000 of revenue per year with the French version when it's not translated into English. And launching an English version of the magazine would serve the current primary English-speaking consumers in the US and may increase the accessibility of the magazine to new consumers in the country, as the French version does in countries where French is a primary or secondary language. Because I don't know, in the fans per country, the top 10 table, I double checked and found that those countries listed had their primary or secondary language as French. So the language that the magazine is in does affect how, or the accessibility and the number of consumers the magazine can access and have. So then the second recommendation has to do with the days of the week to post, which came from the the slide number 13, and Saturday, and well, there was 2 days that were in the lead, and so that's why I put down both days, Saturday and Monday, to suggest new posts be posted on. Between the two dates, though, technically, let's see, Saturday wins. But yeah, Monday is definitely a close second. And then my third recommendation had to do with the time of day to post, and that would be the first range, which is 5 a.m. to 8:59 a.m. That's when we have that's when the magazine has the most engaged fans, and yeah, those are the 3 recommendations I have, and that is it with my slides.
Great, thanks. Yeah. So regarding your slides, I mean your work. So you have mentioned that. Okay, I would just like to draw your attention to the very first statement, very first SQL statement, where you calculate the average.
Oh, sure.
Average number of fans. Yeah, right. So, if I would like to see the output rounded to 2 decimal places, how can I modify your code to make it happen?
Yeah, so you would do select and then type in round and then start your parentheses or open parentheses. Continue on with AVG, daily post reach, and parentheses, and then you would do comma 2 and parentheses. And that would get you the rounding for 2 decimal places. But because you can't have like a partial post, that's why I just used the full a whole number or an integer value.
Let's say if I run I put your statement into the database, I should expect that the average figures should be displayed with decimals instead of rounding it to whole number.
Was that a question?
So in case No, I'm just saying that, well, in case I want to display it with a whole number, so what can we do?
Ooh, I haven't thought about that, but I think if you were to do maybe round and instead of 2, maybe you did 0, I think that would be something I could try. Do you mind if I try?
Yeah. No, that's okay.
Oh, okay.
It's just a way to, to check if you are aware of the round function. So don't worry about it.
Sure.
Yeah. That works. Right. My second question is, you have mentioned a couple of times that instead of using the with course, you cranked at put everything as one statement. So what's your motivation of doing that? Or
Oh, so
why do you want to
put a nested query?
Yeah, so why do you want to instead of using the with course, that you put that in one statement? So what purpose of doing that?
Yeah, it was just because of the number of lines, and I did want it to be visually appealing and just simplify my my statements. And I knew that the with statements, I was mainly just using it because I would get confused with the parentheses, but ultimately, or visually, I should say, the statement within the with statement is the same statement that would go into a nested query. So if I could just use the with statement to first write it out, label it, a given name like total count, and have that total count alias in the main statement until I could figure out how to write my with statement, then it was kind of just like a placeholder for me to then, okay, this is where this is supposed to go, but let me first figure out what's the correct way to write it. But I didn't want to keep the with statement. It's just more lines. That's all it is.
Okay. Yeah. So my one last question. So for the for the statements that gives the top 10 countries in terms of number of fans, and also the bottom 10 cities, as well as the penetration ratio, basically slide 6-8. So there is a where statement which you select the date. So I have seen that you have used a subquery that picks the most recent date using the subquery. So, well, another way of doing it is I can check the database and find out the most recent date manually and enter that date instead of using the subquery.
Yeah, I guess the most recent.
Yeah. So, my question is, what's the problem of doing that? Like inputting the date manually.
Yeah, the problem with inputting it. With doing it manually, if you were to receive new data or an updated data file with a new, more recent date, you're stuck with that manual enter date, or stuck with your statement only considering that as the most recent date, or that manual date, instead of the most recent one. And if you were to have like a script that you run maybe weekly or monthly, you wouldn't want to always manually change that date. You would want to just have your your system just run the most recent one, without having to always change it, because of course there's human error, and you to reduce the amount of human error, you do want to just how you say, always have the best defined purpose for each statement.
Yeah, cool. Great. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I have. And I'm going to stop the recording, and then we can go to the feedback section. Yeah. Hey, thanks for your work, and it's really great. And so don't worry. So you are going to pass this project. So relax, and yeah. So you have met all the competence criteria stated in the project that I have, and you have gone through the so your codes are nice and neat, and you have also explained your rationale of putting those codes very clearly during your presentation, and of course your tables, like the SQL statements, give the correct results from the table, and the questions that I asked in the Q&A sections is basically some common issues with the projects, and some common functions that we use in SQL, and obviously it's just a way to check your knowledge in SQL, basically. So yeah, and you have handled them very well. And in terms of the presentation, so your flow is so you have a well-structured flow of the presentation, presenting the results, and your recommendations are pointed out correctly. So that's what very nice to see. One thing that you might consider in the future is that the project presentation is expected to be put under the context as a analyst presenting the result to their colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
So probably your presentation style may need to slightly change towards in a more business professional setting.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be one area that you may need to consider when you present your results. But otherwise, in terms of the technical the technical part, as well as the output and your SQL coding, that you have done 100%. So no worries. I really like your suggestions of using the between statement, especially in the last slide that you consider the time, where you have also considered the time and the hour and the minute using the case statement. That's a nice one, and you have made your own attempt to change the code, like not to change the code, but to improve on the code, so that it looks more nice and neat. So that's pretty much your work. And so what will be next is that so you will have a written feedback from me in the next probably within today. So you should expect to see the written feedback by today or tomorrow, latest tomorrow, your local time. And basically and then that the result should be passed from Open Classroom to your college, showing that you have passed the requirement of the project, and I believe that should be an indication that you have passed the course, because I believe that's like they have you have a course with your community college that is sort of like contracted to Open Classroom, which means this as a part of your online it's a part of your course.
Yeah.
So so in case you have any issues regarding regarding the assessment, so you could you could send an email to students assessment manager, but you should expect to see the written feedback by today or tomorrow. Tomorrow the latest. Well, expect to receive it end of today.
Okay.
So
thank you very much, James.
Yeah. So in case no worries. Sorry about yesterday.
Oh, no worries. Yeah.
Apologize for that. And it's just and so that's pretty much what I have. And so of course, in case you have any questions.
I do want to say thank you for not being completely silent. I think I would have been more nervous if all I heard was myself. And so thank you for that I was not in the abyss of just myself.
It's part of the assessment. We, as an assessor, we made every possible attempt to help our learners to present themselves and also present the material. And also we have assessors who have whose first language is not English. Probably they may be more nervous to present themselves in front of a webcam and a screen. So we try our best to make sure that every learner can present their best. And we are not here to assess your language ability, because it's just it's just a way to communicate. That's all I need.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for. And of course, the slide deck. That's the reason why we receive we suggest students to upload their slide deck first, so that I as an assessor, we can have a chance to have a look of your work first before the presentation, so that we can come across your material and your presentation.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. So thank you. So all the best, and you should expect the report revision.
Okay. Thank you very much, James. Have a good one.
Oh.
Bye.
Yeah. Cool. You too. Bye bye.